Hello and welcome to Morris Park. I'm Clyde Morris. Today I'd like to show you some of my hybrid Euphorbia collection. Now some of these Euphorbias, I say my hybrid Euphorbia collection. Not all these are actually my creations. Some of these are bought and created by somebody else. Little guy there. Start off with, this is a Euphorbia horita Polygona hybrid. I bought this at Walmart last year. Pretty impressive plant, really find at Walmart. And when I got it, I have some bonuses that came with it. Now down inside here, there were some seedlings, and I'm actually sure that some of these seedlings are actually still there. It may be some of these, but some of these seedlings, I took them out, and you can see some variation there. These being hybrids, they'll vary a little bit and take different characteristics from their parents. See, some are whiter, some have the more green color, and this one's kind of a curious little one here. It's got kind of sharp tubercles on it compared to the others, and not as even a formation of ribs there. See, the tubercles kind of stick out sharply, whereas the other ones, they don't. They're more smooth. So this one's kind of an interesting one here, and I'll have to watch it. It may be a neat cultivar. Something that's kind of morphed and will change into something else. But yeah, these are seedlings from this plant, and here's the thing too, being that I bought them with the mother plant, I don't know what the lineage of these are either. At a nursery, sometimes things can get crossed too just by growing next to each other. So they may have even gone further, but I do know that most likely this is a horita Polygona hybrid by the look at it. I have Polygonas, but the Polygonas seem to be a lot more spiny, not so smooth like this one. And when this one's in its growing season, it almost has a greenish, translucent look underneath the white, whereas the Polygonas are really heavily chalky, kind of like this one. This is a Euphorbia Polygona, and you can see it has more of the remnants of blooming, so it has thorns all over it. Not as smooth looking. But yeah, that's a pure Polygona. But this one has more of a smooth look to it. It's never kept any of its thorns, leftover peduncles that are from the cyathea, the flowers. I really like it. It's going to be exciting to see what these do in time. Now this one here is a Euphorbia gabazam. This is a hybrid between Bapplerifolia and Susannae. I received this one from Daz and Edith of Cactomania. Thanks, guys. Now this color, this brown color, is natural. They tend to have this barky color on them. All the ones I've looked at online and so forth look like this. It hasn't grown a whole lot. It's pretty fat. Got one little leaf all sticking out. And their leaves are very small. They call them the pineapple plant because of the fact that when they grow their little leaves, they look like a little pineapple sitting there with a little tuft of leaves on top. This is a really cool one. I'm kind of waiting on it to pick up a little bit. I know nothing's wrong with it because I've kind of pulled on it and stuff, and it's well rooted, but just a little slow. And I can tell from this little bitty leaf here that it is healthy because the leaf actually is nice bright green. And it reacts every time I water it, it puffs up. So yeah, Euphorbia gabazam, also known as Euphorbia japonica because this was created in Japan. Okay. Next one's here. There's two different ones. And these are some of my hybrids. Now the ones here on the right are Euphorbia Polygona, Euphorbia horita cross. Horita being, the Polygona being the father. And the father is actually the Polygona I just showed you, with all the little thorns on it. And the mother, let's see, that's the mother, it's the Euphorbia stellata. So both very thorny. Some of them have the thorns, as you can see already. No blooms or anything yet. I'm really watching this one over here. It has a real interesting color to it. These white stripes that it has, almost like a little arrow-looking pattern. Looks pretty neat. And they vary also. You'll see more green ones. Of course, the white one sitting there. And that one's kind of more of a yellowy lime green. Now next to it is an interesting hybrid. And I don't know if anybody's tried this out there, and they may have. The horita Polygona hybrids are very common. That's been done a lot. But this is a Polygona seriformis hybrid. And that means the Polygona I just showed you, the father of these also. And this big seriformis back here. This is the mother. And it's been a mother of a couple of projects. But that's the mother. And the father there. So it's a combination of those two. You can see this one actually has a little branch on it already. They're kind of neat looking. I like the wavy ribs on this one. It has the branch. They're really short and fat, which I didn't expect that. I expected more of a tall growth to them. But that may come in time too. These things have a way of morphing. At least that's been my experience with some of my hybrids. But pretty cool. Been watching these closely. Now a lot of these little seedlings I've had inside the house. And the gabazam too. I just brought them out here to group them together so you can see everybody together of my hybrids. This one here is a Euphorbia Opu-toitis enormous hybrid, I believe. Now I purposely pollinated it, but you know, the more I look at these, they almost look like a pure Opu-toitis, but like I said, they can morph later on. One of my other ones did the same thing and fooled me. But this is one I crossed that was a Opu-toitis enormous cross. Enormous being the father. Now the mother of this is this one here. This is Euphorbia Opu-toitis. Oh, looks like you got a little bit of mealybug right there. I'm going to take care of that. These are the male flowers. I'll have to hit this with some alcohol. Don't like that. That's the Opu-toitis that the seed came from. And this is my enormous. It's Euphorbia enormous. Have it up on a high rack. That's fall. You can see some of the remnants of some of the blooms from the summer. Needs to be cleaned off a little bit. But yeah, that should be an interesting hybrid. We'll see what happens. I just noticed this. Look at this. Little mammillaria about to bloom. Kind of out of season, but why not? Now, the next one I'll show you here is a three-way hybrid. This is Euphorbia McGuffin. And as far as I know, this hybrid is, this is it right here. So, Buplurifolia crossed with Euphorbia clava, crossed with Euphorbia heptagona. And that's pretty much what gave this. Now this one, it was under a lot of controversy for a long time. It was under another label completely. And it was sold as this. Even online it was sold as this. I forget the name offhand right now. But the two plants were very different. In fact, this plant also is male and female, where the plant it was being named after was actually a plant that had the sexes on separate plants. This actually was one of my very first Euphorbias when I was a kid. When I was very young, as a matter of fact. Of course, I thought it was a cactus then. I actually remember buying this in a like 2-inch pot and taking it to kindergarten for a show and tell. It's not this particular plant, but it's the same hybrid. This one I bought a couple years ago, and actually I restarted this piece here because it got root rot in the grouping it was in. It was in a group of these that I have. So I just cut it off, let it dry, and stuck it back in. You know, it never even lost a leaf. It was really good about that. It kept its leaves and everything. I really like this hybrid. It kind of grows as a tall, narrow tree, kind of like Polygona does. Okay. Now the one behind here, you guys more or less recognize this one, the Euphorbia McGuffin, but this is a hybrid type, this white one here. And I believe it to be a Polygona McGuffin hybrid. And usually you can look at the spines and tell they don't look exactly like a regular McGuffin. They're doubled up and tripled up, and you can see almost like spine clusters, and that's a Polygona trait. These are very common. You can get these at your Walmart and Lowe's and pretty much everywhere. I bought this one in Springfield at Wickman Gardens a couple years ago. Pretty nice one. Now, this one here is a really neat one. This is one of mine. I started this back in 2018. A few years old. And this is a little child of the Seriformis again and horita. In fact, actually, I think the father of this one is this horita right here. It's not the stellata. This horita and this Seriformis crossed, and I got this. And it's really become a neat little plant. It started out with just that central stem, kind of short, and then all of a sudden just started popping them out. And just keeps going. Offsets everywhere. I view that this is going to be probably a nice round little mound of a plant as it grows because of how it's doing it. And you look down in there, there's little ones coming up in there. It also grows by rhizomes, and if you look down in here, you can see a little one coming up through the rocks there. And that's how it grows. It just kind of grows up under the soil with these little rhizomes. Which actually, that's kind of a common trait for Polygonas. Polygonas do that quite a bit, but this is not anything to do with a Polygona. But that's pretty cool. I really like this little hybrid of mine. I call it Euphorbia Sarita because the Seriformis horita cross. I keep this one inside also. Yeah, I really like this one. It'd be amazing to see what it looks like in another 10 years. It's growing really fast. This summer it grew faster than ever. Still growing pretty good. Probably because it's inside, of course. Now my next one here is my very favorite. This hybrid I did not create, but it was created in my greenhouse. Many of you know this one. I've showed it before. And this is my Euphorbia Enigma. I've had this plant for about 17 years now. And it is a cross between a stellata and an Evansii. And this is something that I had to figure out. It took me a long time because I thought it was actually crossed with a stellata crossed with the Opu-toitis. But watching it and how it grew, I knew that wasn't it. And I had to kind of figure out what was blooming at the time and what could have crossed. Now what happened here is, I didn't do this on purpose. Pollinators came into my greenhouse and did this plant. Butterflies, moths, bees. We have bees of all kinds here in the Ozarks, all kinds of different bees besides just European hunting bees. We also have wasps, which like the nectar on these things. Yellow jackets, which is like a tiny hornet. That packs a big punch. And hornets, of course. So one of these pollinators came in and gave me this gift. Now, the original stellata branch that I had this came from, it was just a rooted branch I saved from an original stellata I had flowered, and I was lucky enough to get this. I actually didn't even catch the seed of this. The seed actually exploded off into another pot. I'd meant to get it, procrastinated, and it launched itself into another pot with a cactus somewhere. But I did catch it. It started growing. I said, oh, great, I got me a little stellata. Then the branch I had died, and this carried on. Now, in the first 5 years, this looked just like a Euphorbia stellata. And some of you are probably looking at it just real quick and going, oh, that's a stellata. But if you look at this, and stellata does get three-angled branches sometimes, just off and on here and there, and just at random, but not common. This starts with growing flat branches, and then they morph into three-angled branches. And not only that, they also morph into four-angled branches. This is a one-of-a-kind plant. It was the only one that came up. The only one I have of it. Now over here, I have a number of branches that I've had drawing out, so I'm going to try to start these. I tried starting them last year. I got one to root, but it's kind of being finicky. But this plant is a very rare hybrid. It's only one. There's no more of these anywhere in the world. This plant is a loner. Extremely rare hybrid. And this may be my favorite hybrid. In fact, it is my favorite hybrid of mine. And it may be my favorite Euphorbia of all the greenhouse. I really love it. It's got that nice codex like a stellata has. And that's kind of why I trimmed some of these branches off too. I wanted to give it some room there to where you can see the codex and not be at all covered up with all the branches. This thing gets kind of shaggy. So every year I cut a little bit of the old crown off to expose this nice new crown that comes out. And it gives it kind of a bonsai kind of look, doesn't it? This is a really awesome hybrid. I really love this one. I'm working on trying to get it started. Sure, there'll be more of them. I'll have to do the two-step cutting method on this, which means starting them up, getting them growing, and then cutting them off about 2 inches above the soil so they can branch out and grow normally, or else these will just continue growing longer and longer and longer if you just plant them as a branch. So I got to start them up, get them rooted, or try to get them rooted. They're a little finicky. And try to get some more of these growing, because it actually scares me sometimes to repot this plant. I'm scared of injuring the roots. I'm scared of something happening to it. It's just so extremely rare, and I'd hate to lose it. I say the mother branch is gone. There's no other of these, so I'm going to try. Now the next hybrid I'll show you, my last one here, is this one, and it also is a stellata hybrid. I had a small stellata in here not long ago, and it got dry rot and just yellowed out and shriveled up. But before it did, I was able to pollinate this with a Grunewaldii. And I'll show you that here in a second. This is a Grunewaldii. It's a male plant, I believe. Oh, actually it's a male and female, pardon me. With the male pollen, I used that to hybridize the stellata. It worked, but there again, I only got one, and that's it. So these two are very rare hybrids, actually these three. I've not heard of anybody doing anything with Euphorbia and the horitas. I've looked this up online to try to find it, and you can't find one. But these two here, I consider very rare. There's only one, and this one too. One of each. This one I think will be very easy to hybridize. Both of its parents are very easy to propagate. I didn't mean hybridize, actually. I meant propagate, excuse me. I think it'll be easy to propagate. I think those little heads will just root right up. Excuse me. So, this one shouldn't be a problem. But this one's really finicky. I don't know what it is. And I have yet to see what this one will do. Now this one is growing like a stellata seedling except for one thing. It looks like the branches are puffed up with air. They're super fat like a cat paw. See that? I really can't wait for this one to grow. It's been going along slow. But I think it'll be really amazing once it gets growing. Granny Waldii, stellata cross. Pretty cool. Enigma. Hybridizing Euphorbias is relatively easy. The thing I can suggest is, if you're going to hybridize them, look for ones that have similar forms. And like I said, like the stellatas and the Granny Waldii, of course, have similar forms. They come from that central growing point. Also, being that this was crossed with an Evansii, this also holds true for Evansii, even though it's a tree form. You can see that central growing point where all the branches come out of. And yes, this is the father of the Enigma. It's a big tree. I actually tied up some of the branches I moved it. Didn't really like it. Those nice, fresh, new branches for this year just kind of flopped around and flopped over once I got it in here. So I had to kind of tie them up. Really nice Euphorbia. Old Euphorbia I've had for so many years. Close to 40 years. But yeah. As I said, when hybridizing, you kind of want to keep your forms close. If they're rounded or columnar, sort of, I'd say that they'll kind of be compatible. So like horitas, some of them are rounded and some of them more columnar. Seriform is more columnar. They don't grow from a central growing point like the Enigma. Or if you're going to like want to cross medusas or anything like that, keep kind of within the form. Because I don't think, like say, a Flanaganii would cross with this because of a different form. Or even with this. The forms are just so different, they just won't do it, even though they're in the same genus. But yeah, pretty easy. Just if you want to do it, the best thing to do is watch your Euphorbias when they start to bloom. Get a paintbrush and catch those little male flowers. You'll see the little yellow pollen anthers sticking out, and the females will have a little, like a trident star-looking stigma, and just transfer the pollen to the other one. If you're successful, you'll get a 3-sided seed pod forming in no time. I think it's pretty fun doing this because you can get new plants and you're seeing new forms that other people haven't seen yet. And kind of witnessing a whole new plant. Like this. Or this. A brand new plant that nobody has seen around the world except for through here. Anyway, I hope you like my Euphorbia hybrids. I'm very interested in them, and as the years go on, I will be making more different hybrids because I enjoy seeing new different plants and creating new different plants. Anyhow, I'm glad you could join me today. This is Clyde Morris from Morris Park with my cool hybrids. Hope you all have a great evening. And take care.